We talk about ownership a lot as leaders. Speaking with candor is the greatest form of ownership. Telling them how you feel and trying to understand how they feel.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it.
Today, we're going to follow that up with a topic about leading with candor. So when we think about candor, we can think about it in a couple different ways. We can think about expressing yourself, being able to communicate properly. And there's a few key things that we want to touch on when we think about candor to make sure that we get it right, because it can go wrong pretty darn quickly. I'm sure everyone's been on a side of a conversation where appreciate the candor, however, your approach was maybe a touch off. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk about what it means to communicate with candor. We're going to talk about the cost of not communicating with candor. And then we're going to go into a few tips on how to actually do it effectively. And for me, this is really hard to do. I don't like confrontation. I don't like getting in arguments. I don't like any of that stuff. And so that's what makes it hard for me to sometimes do this. However, we're going to talk about what it means, what the cost is, and then how to do it. As I said, everybody's been on maybe the wrong side of candor, and I know that this is something that I struggle with. As I was rolling through my notes, I was like, well, shoot, I probably need to pay a little bit more attention as opposed to talking. So when we think about candor, we can all point to that example that didn't go right, but we can probably also point to examples that did go right. You know, when this is hard for you to do potentially, what I have found is actually doing it is one of the more relieving things. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but when you do it, when you allow yourself to be a little bit vulnerable as opposed to trying to, play it safe or play whatever's convenient, I think we would all agree that we get better results, right? When the person that we're trying to communicate with or our team understands how we feel about a certain situation, that's going to help. I think it also speaks to understanding. We've talked a lot about this. When we talk about candor, I also think it means that we communicate the why, right? We always say that around here, right? Well, do they know the why? Do they know the why behind what it is? And I think that speaks to a little bit of candor in understanding the whole situation. For you to fully understand why I'm asking you to do something, it would probably be helpful if you understood the whole situation. Like, why am I asking this? Well, there may be a couple of reasons downstream or whatever that may be. I think candor is also when we think about our one-on-ones or our paths to progression. To me, our paths to progression is the greatest form of candor, right? It allows a technician, a field professional, to know exactly where he's at and how to win. For the longest time, we never had that. So we weren't really communicating with any sort of candor whatsoever. It was just, do better, please. Whereas now, they have a scoreboard. They have a means to improve. And we all like scoreboards. We all like measuring things. Well, I got a little bit better. Lost another pound, whatever it may be. All of those things are important when we're communicating. So what does speaking with candor really mean? Well, speaking with candor does not mean speaking brutally, right? We've all heard be brutally honest. Well, that can go a couple different directions. And so I think it's important to understand that it's not about coming across as harsh or dominating or whatever the word that you want to put with that is. It's about understanding and taking responsibility for what you feel, what your truth is. And so in the book, when they talk about it, which I've never heard this term, but I like it, they talk about speaking unarguably. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means sharing what's true for you. I feel this way, not you are making me feel this way. I feel this way. I feel frustrated. I feel upset. I feel confused. That's how I feel. As you can imagine, that probably opens up a little bit more dialogue than You are confusing me. You are stupid. You're dumb. So when we think about unarguable, we think about these I statements. How are you feeling? What do you feel about the situation? Because at the end of the day, that's your feeling. No one can take that away. Now, if you feel frustrated, let's work together to make sure that you're not. How do we get there? What are we missing? It opens up dialogue. It opens up the opportunity for us as leaders to actually lead, to actually help those that we're supposed to be leading. And it may seem like a very simple word change, but it makes all the difference, because we can all think about those conversations that have went really well and those that have not gone so well. And it's very hard sometimes to articulate how we feel, because we're in the rough, tough trades. We don't feel anything, right? Yeah, we do. We feel it all day. Yes, do we try to suppress some of that stuff? Yeah, for sure. Do a lot of our people still operate with the, well, no news is good news? Yes, they do. But it's our job to open up that dialogue, to understand how we can help them win. If they're doing something that's detrimental to their performance or their job duties, or they're struggling and it's visible, how do we open up that conversation? Because ultimately, when we withhold how we feel, it ultimately kills trust. Because at the end of the day, you know a lot of times how people are feeling about a certain situation. But have you asked? Have you related with them? Have you given them an example of when you were frustrated or when you were confused? We've all been there. We've all had times with high anxiety and high stress and all of these things. So how do we relate with those that we lead? Ultimately, we know what happens when we withhold how we feel, right? It's the meeting after the meeting. What do we call it? The dumpster chat. You get passive-aggressive behavior. People become disengaged. If they don't know how you feel and you're not inquiring about how they feel about a certain situation, why would I engage? There's no reason for me to have a high level of engagement if I don't think that anybody cares about how I feel. Now, that doesn't mean that their feelings are right or wrong or whatever. It just means they have them. It just means we care about them. And a lot of the times, as you probably all can relate, a lot of the times once you open up that dialogue, it's a very simple solution. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you that. Oh my, I didn't mean it like that. That wasn't the purpose of that. This is why we were doing that thing. Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense. But a lot of times as leaders, we find ourselves not intentionally withholding information, but never opening up the door for someone to share how they actually feel. We've all been guilty of probably running a meeting where we just talk the whole time. And then we get to the end and we ask for questions, and what happens? No questions. Everything's crystal clear. Yet then, later in the day, you hear all these rumblings about what wasn't clear, about how they're massively confused. Well, hold on a second. We did the meeting. I asked for questions. No one had any. And now here we are. What I can't give you is a tip for how to make that meeting better in the moment. Where that starts is way before the meeting. Where that starts is the relationship that you build with all of the people that you lead so that they feel comfortable asking a silly question. So they feel comfortable raising their hand and going, hold on a second, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me. Please explain that. That takes place when you take maybe the couple of leaders on your team and sit down with them individually and explain this new thing that we're going to roll out. so that then maybe people feel comfortable asking those questions. I always think about, obviously, sports. Anders all war and carnage and all of that. I just think about playing sports. But I think about all these coaches, and if you like when they interview them and like how they treat their team, and they've got a new one, and they've got different leaders and a different team dynamic and the chemistry and all of this stuff. The ability to speak with candor comes from understanding what that dynamic looks like. You've got different personalities on the team. You've got people who understand things a little bit quicker than others. You got people that have been on the team for a long time and others that are brand new. So how do you, utilizing candor, lead better? We do that by the individual relationships that we foster outside of these group settings, so that individual people know how we feel and they feel as though we understand how they feel or where they're coming from. I've been in so many meetings where like someone's talking and they're like, well, so-and-so is really, really confused and they're not sure about this. And it's like, well, can I just talk to them? Like, maybe let's figure it out. Like, it's not super. Like, I get it. Like, get where their feelings are. I get all of these things. Like, let's just hash it out. Just lay it out there on the ground. Like, we don't need to hold anything back. There's nothing to hide. This is what we're doing. So how do we do this effectively? How do we begin to speak with candor? The first and foremost principle is, what is your intent? Are you going into the meeting to prove this person wrong? Are you going into the meeting to exert your control over the situation? I'm the manager. I'm in charge. This is what we need to do. If someone continually shows up late or calls in, what does that conversation look like? Do we ask why? Could I ask you a question? I'm getting a little bit frustrated in that I am responsible for you being on time and being accountable, that you're not showing up on time. Help me understand that. What can I do to help you? Because I want you to be successful. And you can't be successful if you're not here. So how do I help? What can I do? And it's sometimes the littlest things, just like that example, that can go the wrong way the quickest, right? The bigger things are easier to like grapple with and get into. It's all of these small things that it's just easier just to say, hey, start showing up on time. Don't you think they know that? My guess is yeah. There's got to be something, and maybe it is very easy to fix. But when you speak with candor and you attempt to understand why they're having such a difficult time with such a simple task, you begin to build trust with that person. You begin to build that muscle that hopefully is going to take them to the next level. There's so many stories over the course of this year that I'm so proud of where I came into a meeting and this technician is about ready to, like, he ain't gonna make it. It's not good. But our management team says, we're gonna work with him. We're gonna figure him out. And my guess is that a lot of those conversations started with a lot of candor. What's holding you back, man? What are you struggling with? Where can I help you? Let me hop in the van with you. Let's go figure this out together. And the amount of people that have made a turnaround. You know when I know they make that turnaround? Light bulb just came on. No, it didn't. You worked with them. You led. You did the things that you needed to do to build the trust with that person so that they wanted to make you proud and they wanted to make themselves proud. Who are those people on your team that you need to speak with more candor? Who are those people that have potential, but they're just not showing it? We talk about ownership a lot as leaders. Speaking with candor is the greatest form of ownership. Telling them how you feel and trying to understand how they feel. We talked about it earlier, using the I statements about your own experience. I'm a part of a group and have been for a number of years. It's called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And so a number of leaders from all different industries, we get together and we have events and do things as a group. There's like 100 of us in Indiana. And then we have these smaller groups that are called forums. So there's me and 6 other guys, and we meet every month and just talk about what's going on and how to solve this problem. And I'm struggling with this, or I need to make a hire here, or how to make a difficult decision or whatever. And you go through training to make these effective. I kid you not. Training on how to have a meeting properly. But the number one thing that I've always taken away and tried to use is they tell you, don't ever just tell someone what to do. So, example, you come into the meeting, I got a problem with, I don't think Michael's at the dentist, so we'll use him as an example. I got a problem with my CFO. This guy's an idiot, I don't know what to do. And what they instruct you to do is not just tell the person, well, you just need to fire him. You just need to find someone new. The way that you should approach it is, well, in my experience, when I had a tough situation with somebody, here's kind of how I handled it, and this was kind of the fallout of it. So some things that I learned from the situation was, don't do this before that, whatever it may be, right? And you can see how that comes across as, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm simply just giving you what I've experienced in my own life. And that's how we speak with these unarguable statements. Because guess what? That person can't come back and say, well, I don't really want to do this, and that wouldn't work in this situation, and that. It's like, get it, man. I was just telling you what happened in my situation. And then it allows people to figure out their own problems, right? Because that's ultimately what we want people to do. We want to relate with them. This is what happened when I was there. When I was out in the field and ran into this situation or a difficult customer, this is kind of how I handled it. Now, sometimes it went good, sometimes it went bad, but this was a strategy that worked for me. You may give it a shot. Because then you're on the same side of the table, trying to figure out the problem together, as opposed to being across the table and butting heads. I'm right. No, I'm right. Well, I do it this way. Well, you should do it this way. We all can see how that can spiral. The other piece is being open to feedback. While you may be the leader or manager, guess what? You don't have all the answers. You would be amazed at the number of questions I get about this business that I have no idea how to answer. Not a clue. And I say, that is a fantastic question. We're going to have to ask somebody on the team that knows that specifically, because I don't know how to do that. But being open to feedback is not about proving if we're right or wrong. It's about gaining clarity to understand what is the right answer to the problem. Everyone's got opinions. You know what I've noticed about a lot of opinions? A lot of them are unfounded. I think this if we do that. Cool. I think that if we do this. Okay. Let's solve it together. What are the pros? What are the cons? What could happen? How are we going to get to an answer? Everybody's got a different perspective because everybody's doing a little bit something different. This is my perspective. That's your perspective. Let's put all this together and figure out how we can come to the best solution possible. Because with a lot of change, we don't know the answer. Even when we use our own experiences, variables are different. Things are different. We say that a lot around here, don't we? Welp, I talked to 3 people, but we don't kind of operate like that, so I don't know that that's going to work. Maybe we can take a piece of that. Maybe we can take a piece of this, and we can put it together to figure out what is the best outcome. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're after. We're after a collective outcome. But we have to understand where everybody stands in the situation. How does everybody feel? Are people confused? Are they frustrated? Do they feel stressed? What are all those things? Now, how do we go solve those things? Because if we solve those things, the problems become so much easier to solve. Anybody ever tried to solve a problem where everybody's sitting in the room and everybody has a different perspective and everybody's like, I don't know about that? It's like, well, if none of us know about it, then we're going to have a tough time figuring out what the damn answer is. So we've all got a level so that we can all move forward. And it's a tough thing to do, right? Because no one wants to be vulnerable. No one wants to say, I don't get this. Someone needs to explain this to me. I'm confused. The power of candid conversations ultimately creates a candid culture where people feel trusted and respected. They feel like their opinion matters because people are asking them for it. Well, how do you think we should solve this? How are you feeling about this? What can I do to help? All of these things. It's a lot easier to blame. It's a lot easier just to tell people what to do. But it's a hell of a lot harder to solve problems effectively if we don't understand how people feel and letting them know how we feel. Everybody knows when somebody else is frustrated, for the most part, right? Everybody knows when people are probably confused. How do we cut through that? How do we create a culture where there's higher trust? Our people are more engaged. They feel like part of the solution. Because guess what? Our teams have a lot of knowledge. They do it every day. What a great perspective to have. How do we get their input? How do we allow ourselves to be vulnerable in front of them? Tough thing to do as a leader, right? You're supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to have an answer for every problem. But you won't, and you don't. And that's okay. I don't, and I won't. I know that. So I'm going to need some help. So think about your teams. Think about who's on your team and who you need to practice having more candor with. Who seems confused? Who seems irritated? Who seems stressed out? Find out why. Relate with them. What do they need to know about you? What do they need to know about how you're feeling about their performance or the way that they're handling something? It's tough. Start small. Find one person on your team that may need to have a candid conversation. And again, you don't need to be brutally honest with them. You need to be candid and open and understanding that they may have some good input and they may be going through something that you aren't aware of. And that's okay because you're here to help. As leaders, we're here to grow our team. Not always by number, but we're here to help them grow so that they can go achieve more. Because what do we know? In this business especially, all of you sitting in the room will not be doing the work today, for the most part. But most of the time, you're not doing the work. The people you lead are doing the work. So we need to understand how they feel. They need to know how we feel. And together, we can solve problems. Speaking with candor is not easy. You've got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing to be wrong. You got to give up control. All of the things that probably in some shape or form you like. I like. How do we get over that hump? Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Share with your people how you're feeling, and trust will be built.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with me personally, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel and consider joining the CSTG Arena. As always, keep growing out there.